Downtown Los Angeles bustled with life, a stark contrast to the towering monolithic structure that loomed over Main Street, the Cecil Hotel. Once a glamorous establishment in the 1920s, its shine had long faded, replaced by a notorious reputation for violence, tragedy, and the unexplained. For decades, the hotel had been a magnet for the lost and the damned, a place where the line between the living and the dead blurred into a chilling haze. Emily Walker had always been drawn to the macabre. As a freelance journalist, she had spent years exploring haunted locations and writing about her experiences. The Cecil Hotel was the ultimate prize, a place so steeped in dark history that it almost seemed alive with malevolence. Her editor had given her the green light, and Emily was determined to uncover the secrets hidden within its walls. She arrived on a foggy afternoon, the Los Angeles sun hidden behind a thick veil of gray. The hotel's exterior was a mix of Gothic and Art Deco architecture, its once grand entrance now a shadow of its former self. As Emily pushed open the heavy creaking doors, she was met with the stale, musty air of the lobby. The receptionist, an elderly woman with deep-set wrinkles and cold, piercing eyes, barely acknowledged her presence. "I'm Emily Walker. I have a reservation," she said, forcing a smile. The receptionist handed her a key without a word. "Room 1402. Emily thanked her and made her way to the ancient elevator. As the doors slid shut with a metallic clang, a shiver ran down her spine. The air inside was suffocating, and the faint smell of decay lingered. As night fell, Emily sat on the bed reviewing her notes. The Cecil Hotel had a long list of tragedies, suicides, murders, and mysterious disappearances. One story in particular caught her attention, the unsolved case of Elisa Lamb, a young woman who had vanished and was later found dead in one of the hotel's water tanks. The eerie footage of her last moments in the elevator had gone viral, adding to the hotel's infamy. Emily set up her recorder and began speaking. "This is Emily Walker, documenting my first night at the Cecil Hotel. The atmosphere is heavy, and there's an unsettling silence. I'll be conducting an EVP session shortly." She turned on the EMF detector and placed it on the nightstand. As she asked questions into the darkness, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Minutes turned into hours, and just as she was about to call it a night, the detector's lights flickered. "Is someone here with me?" she asked, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The lights flashed again, this time more brightly. Emily's heart raced. She picked up the recorder, playing back her questions. When she reached the part where she had asked if someone was there, a faint, almost imperceptible whisper replied, "Yes." Sleep eluded Emily that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the events in her mind. The whisper on the recorder was clear evidence of a presence, but she needed more. As dawn approached, she finally drifted into a fitful sleep, only to be awakened by a loud bang. Emily shot up, her heart pounding. The room was eerily quiet. She grabbed her camera and cautiously opened the door. The hallway was empty, but a chill in the air made her shiver. She followed the sound, which seemed to be coming from the end of the corridor. As she approached, she saw the door to room 1432, slightly ajar. Her curiosity piqued. Emily pushed the door open. The room was in disarray, with furniture overturned and the wallpaper torn. A thick layer of dust covered everything, indicating that no one had been there in a long time. As she scanned the room with her camera, something caught her eye. In the corner, a shadowy figure stood, its features obscured by darkness. "Who are you?" Emily asked, her voice trembling. The figure remained silent, unmoving. She took a step closer, and the temperature dropped sharply. Her breath fogged in the air, and an overwhelming sense of dread washed over her. Suddenly, the figure lunged at her, its face contorted in a grotesque scream. Emily stumbled back, dropping her camera. When she looked up, the figure was gone. Determined to find answers, Emily spent the next day researching the hotel's history. She visited the local library and pored over old newspapers and archives. The Cecil Hotel had opened in 1927, a symbol of opulence and luxury. But the Great Depression hit hard, and the hotel's clientele changed from wealthy tourists to transients and the destitute. Over the years, the hotel had been the site of numerous suicides, murders, and unexplained deaths. One story that stood out was that of Richard Ramirez, the infamous Night Stalker, who had lived at the Cecil during his killing spree in the 1980s. Another was the tragic case of a woman named Elizabeth Short, also known as the Black Dahlia, who was rumored to have been seen at the hotel before her gruesome murder. Emily's research also uncovered tales of supernatural occurrences, ghostly apparitions, disembodied voices, and strange noises. The most chilling accounts came from former staff members who spoke of a malevolent presence that seemed to feed on the despair and fear of the hotel's occupants. Armed with this knowledge, Emily returned to the hotel, more determined than ever. That night she decided to explore the building further. She made her way to the basement where it was said that the hotel's darkest secrets were hidden. The air grew colder as she descended the stairs, and the dim light from her flashlight cast eerie shadows on the walls. The basement was a labyrinth of corridors and rooms, each more foreboding than the last. As she ventured deeper, she heard faint whispers and distant footsteps. Her EMF detector began to spike, and she felt an invisible force pushing against her. She continued forward, her heart pounding in her chest. In one of the rooms, she found an old rusted door that seemed out of place. She pushed it open and was met with a sight that made her blood run cold. The room was filled with old photographs, newspaper clippings, and personal belongings, all linked to the hotel's victims. In the center of the room stood an altar, covered in strange symbols and surrounded by candles. As Emily approached, the candles flickered to life. The temperature plummeted, and she felt a presence behind her. She turned slowly to see a woman standing there, her eyes hollow and filled with sorrow. It was Elisa Lamb. Her ghostly form was translucent, and she seemed to be trying to speak. "Help me," Elisa whispered, her voice barely audible. Emily felt a surge of empathy and fear. "How can I help you?" she asked, her voice cracking. Elisa pointed to the altar. "Destroy it!" she said, her form flickering. Emily grabbed one of the candles and set fire to the altar. The flames quickly consumed the strange symbols and the photographs. As the fire grew, the room filled with an unearthly howl, and the temperature soared. Emily felt a force pushing her out of the room, and she stumbled back into the corridor. Emily ran through the basement, the howls and whispers growing louder. Emily spent the next few days gathering information on how to cleanse the hotel of its dark energy. She consulted with paranormal experts and researched ancient rituals. She learned that the hotel's malevolent presence was a manifestation of the suffering and despair of its victims, and only a powerful ritual could banish it. She gathered the necessary ingredients: salt, sage, and holy water. On the final night, she returned to the basement, determined to perform the ritual. The air was thick with anticipation, and the whispers seemed to follow her every step. Emily drew a circle of salt around the room and lit the sage, the smoke filling the air with a purifying scent. She recited the incantation she had learned, sprinkling holy water on the walls and the altar. The temperature dropped sharply and the whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices pleading and cursing. As she completed the ritual, a blinding light filled the room. The howls reached a deafening pitch, and she felt a force lifting her off the ground. She closed her eyes, holding on to the belief that she was doing the right thing. When she opened her eyes, the room was silent. The air was still, and the oppressive weight had lifted. The malevolent presence was gone. She felt a sense of peace and relief wash over her. Emily left the Cecil Hotel the next morning, her mission complete. She had documented the entire experience and planned to write the most compelling story of her career. The hotel had returned to its eerie silence, but the darkness had been lifted. As she drove away, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had only scratched the surface of the Cecil's mysteries. The hotel had a way of drawing people in, its history a magnet for those seeking answers to the unknown. Emily knew that she would never forget her time there, and the haunting whispers would stay with her forever. Back in her office, she reviewed her notes and recordings. The EVP sessions, the thermal images, and the footage of the apparition all pointed to one undeniable truth. The Cecil Hotel was a place where the past and present collided, where the living and the dead coexisted in a delicate balance. Emily's story was published, garnering widespread attention and acclaim. Readers were captivated by her account of the haunting and the ritual that had cleansed the hotel. But Emily knew that the Cecil would always be a place of mystery, a dark chapter in the annals of Los Angeles history. And as the sun set on another day, the Cecil Hotel stood silently, its walls whispering secrets to those brave enough to listen.